Do you ever wonder why business owners give back? Stick around, you're going to find out why.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
Awesome. We have got an incredible interview here today. I've got Dave Hydock, on the show with me today. We're going to talk about something that a lot of company owners just don't think about. But before we do that, let me introduce Dave. Dave was the youngest of 6 children. I have 7 grandchildren. My daughter has 7 grandchildren. So, man, when I read that, Dave, I thought, holy cow, I can relate to Dave. Being the youngest, 10 years between the youngest and the oldest, exactly what my 7 grandkids have. Unfortunately, Dave, his father passed away, and he really has an interesting story about his mother raising him and the things he went through. Folks, you got to listen to this because this sets the tone for why Dave does a lot of what Dave does. But anyway, Dave, a very strong religious background. We'd love to have believers on the show. He's dedicated. He has a dedicated, loving mother, family. It's created a lot of his give back, his volunteerism, if you will. He is a franchise owner. He's been in business for 25 years. He turned his business into a franchise. We're going to hear a lot about that. Dave, thanks. I really appreciate you being on the show with me today.
Thanks for having me, Don. I appreciate it. Who would have thought a simple little post on a franchise, Facebook page would lead you to me? So thank you for following up with that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I for the audience, Dave and I were sharing off camera here a second about how important it's gotten for consumers to deal with businesses and business owners who do more than just their services or their products. Their lives and their businesses are purposed more than just that transaction. So anyway, we're going to hear more about that. You folks don't want to hear it from me. You want to hear it from Dave. So let me go through a couple of quick things, Dave, real quick questions. When you first started or contemplated starting the franchise, and how many years ago was that again?
That was in 2008. So I had already been in business for 14, 15 years, and it was pure luck. I happened to be in a rock band at the time, and the lead singer of this band was very affluent. His company had an internet apparel business, and we restored his deck one day on a Saturday. And he, of course, had a mansion. The deck was, it had its own zip code. It was gigantic, and he couldn't believe that we had gotten it done in one day. It would take him a week or two to do it himself. So after we restored his deck, we had band practice that following Wednesday. And he said, Dave, you should franchise. He goes, I've never seen anybody work that efficiently. And I didn't think franchising was for the ordinary, young kid contractor. I thought that was McDonald's and, you name it. I thought it was big brand names only. I never thought I could franchise my own small deck restoration company. So I did. It cost a fortune. It was terrifying, but it fortunately worked. We have 11 units. We're not massive by any stretch, but I do like the family size, the family nature of the franchise system. I think if I had hundreds and hundreds of units, I think something would be lost there. So I still get to work personally with each and every franchise owner. So it's gratifying. It's definitely I'm so glad I franchised. Like I said, I was terrified. I was not prepared for it. I thought I had the right resources, but I did not. So you make mistakes and you learn, and God willing, you stick with it, and it works out.
Yeah, and again, for our guests, and Dave knows this, our guests are typically folks buying franchises, somebody in the buy-sell, like franchise sales reps, friend dev reps, brokers, consultants. So our audience is often looking for brands, or people want to understand how you got started with your brand, and we'll talk more about that. So when you started, and you're not unusual, it's not unusual, Dave. I think a lot of people just don't understand, particularly when they're looking to buy a franchise. They go, I could never even buy a franchise because I don't have the $1 million or $2 million you need for a McDonald's. So it's really interesting. My team and I talk about this a lot. we think about 70% of the franchises out there are priced somewhere between $75,000 and $150,000. So
Absolutely.
more people could get into franchising than realize that they could. But when you started your franchisor, when you started the model, converted your business, what was your thoughts? Did you have a vision for it? Did that change once you started operating? I'm always curious about that, those first couple of years.
Absolutely. I'm in Ohio. I'm in the Cleveland area, and my thought was to be an Ohio business. I would have been thrilled if all we sold were major markets in Ohio, and we are fortunate enough to have most of Ohio covered. We have Milwaukee, Syracuse, Indiana, and Atlanta, Georgia now. So I will say that my goal was simply to branch out from Northeast Ohio. And anything outside of Ohio that we sold, to me, would be icing on the cake. I probably did not ever envision myself being one of those Zors that has hundreds and hundreds of units. I know there's obviously money in that, but I think having the family background and the education that I received, I think there was more an emphasis on being close to one another, to treat these franchisees as family, not dollar signs, or not just a name on a royalty form every month. So
I think there's growth, there's crazy wild growth, and then there's responsible growth.
Yeah.
And I think you could still have great growth. We work with private clients, and we talk more about doubling every year. So if I say doubling every year, people would go, wow, that's incredible. Well, that still gets you to somewhere between 60 and 80 and maybe 100 in 5 years. So but there are companies out there, and some people want 100 in a year or 150 in 18 months or something like that. If you're not capitalized properly, and you're not staffed and structured properly, that is a disaster. It may show a lot of zeros, in the sales category, but it can really create disasters for the franchisor 3 years down the road. So tell me about some of the challenges. It's I work with a lot of emerging brands. That's one piece of our business, and I'm always curious about the challenges that they had, and did they have any advisors? Obviously, you have to have an attorney in there, but anyway, tell us about some of your challenges. Tell the audience who's thinking about turning their business into a franchise, what were some of those challenges?
Well, you touched on a couple already. Don't even ask me how this happened, but the first year that we were able to sell franchises, we sold 10 in 1 year. And I am telling you right now, you talk about explosive growth that you're not prepared for. We were not prepared in the sense that I did not know how to properly vet these candidates. And much to my own, chagrin, I sold a few that probably should not have been sold. And I have gotten a lot wiser. We are basically in our second generation of franchise owners right now. I had sold to several older gentlemen, folks who were early retirees. And they soon found out, being active owners, that they couldn't handle the rigors of the job. It is you work outdoors in the heat and the sunshine, which is a definite pro, but also if you're not in the best physical shape, it's a con. It's not an asset. So we have sold now. I think all but one franchisee now is a descendant, a relative, an employee of one of the original, I call them the founders, the founders.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's neat. Our average age of franchisee has gone from, I think, 58 down to 38 or 34. So we have learned, and I know this is one of the questions you tend to ask is, what is your ideal candidate? It's somebody who's, young or young at heart, that can handle the rigors of being outdoors, even if you're not going to be in the field. It's just something you have to deal with. You're going to be out there, and I always say the joy of this business is I get to make a lot of money playing with a 3,000 PSI squirt gun, so it's a lot of fun. I mean, I can't believe I got paid for this, so that's
Well, the energy thing, though, is important, not just the physical part of it, but again, for my audience, honestly, I counsel people, 90% of the people that start franchises or start businesses do so by the time they're 45, late 40s. And so that energy thing, I've told people for years, if you're over 50, there's really two issues. Do you have the energy and the drive? because of your age. And then the second piece, I think, is, when you get to a certain age, candidly, there's certain things you just don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
And so like prospecting, or like making some of those initial phone calls. And so if you're not willing to do those things, then commit to me. If I'm helping them buy something, commit to me. You're going to hire someone to do that. Yep. Or you've got to, suck it up and go do it. So, yep. But I'm glad you point that out, because I think that 50-ish age range is about the over the 50 is where you really have to start thinking about what you experienced.
Yep. And I'm 53 now. I've been doing deck rescue half my life. I started the company in 1995. I'm 25 years old. So I'm at the age now where, yes, I will be sunsetting my career, within a few years here. We're working on exit strategies, but I love it. I'm still out in the field. I still love the actual joy of restoring decks and fences and log homes. I mean, you're taking something that's organic, that looks like it's dead, it looks like it's long gone, and you're literally bringing it back to life. So there's a rejuvenative aspect of this business that I do think helps keep you young and keeps you active. So, but yes, I'm with you. These kids now that are my franchisees, they could be my children, as how young some of these guys are. So it's definitely giving me a jolt. It's giving me a burst of energy that I didn't know I had left in the tank. So it's fun. It's a lot.
Well, I think most of my friends are actually probably somewhere between 5 and 10 years younger than me. So I think that keeps me young. I didn't do it intentionally. It just sort of has happened. Any surprises, if you think back, Dave, over the years in franchising, any surprises, you if you to look back and you go, wow, I didn't see that one coming. Any surprises in the whole turning into the franchise?
I will say that, like I said, my first few years of being a franchisor, I thought I had all the resources, but I didn't. It turns out there was this whole world out there, particularly in home services. Well, lo and behold, I happened to get a spam email in my junk folder. It was from a gentleman, Scott Abbott. ProNexus has his own, had a painting company at the time, and he has what's called a home services. And he has his seminar every year, I think in Philadelphia. I was one of them. It's called Springboard. And so basically here I was floundering my first few years as a Zor, thinking I was with the right people, not even knowing that there was this whole world of people, again, particularly in home services, who are the movers and shakers, but they are so humble and so friendly that they take time with a little guy like me. And I'm telling you, it's been a journey. The fact that these guys are so friendly and giving, and you can tell that they've achieved in life because they're giving back. They've reached, who knows what they do for charity work, but I considered myself a charity at that point. They were spending time with me at these, here we are in this giant hall in Philadelphia, and I've got a one-on-one session with a couple of these guys with, 3,000-4,000 units. And I'm just thinking, you've got to have a better way to spend your day than with me. So I will say that was the most pleasant surprise of all, is the franchisee community. Yeah, there's a lot of, everyone's trying to get ahead, and there's a lot of competition for leads to get that next unit sold. But boy, oh boy, when you get right down to it, these are just great men and women that really do want everyone. It's a rising tide mentality.
Yeah. I heard the CEO of McDonald's speak within the last year or so, and he said that franchising is like the on-ramp to entrepreneurism and generational wealth building. And I think that's the mindset in franchising. Your direct competitor may not be wanting to sit at the table sharing best demonstrated practices with you, but overall, it is an industry that is pretty tight, and I think that's great. Well, let me shift gears. One of the real big reasons that I wanted to have you on the podcast was we connected regarding some of the things that you do in your community, some of your give back. And so the question I typically ask is, give me a highlight, give me one of your biggest successes. And I think that's probably gonna lead us into the conversation about your giving, about your give back. So talk, I'm just going to open mic it here a little bit, Dave. Talk about how you got that started. Why did you do it? And how's it been going for you, personal fulfillment and business success?
I thank you for asking. Yes. Well, on our 20th anniversary in 2000, or rather 2020, I should say, gosh, time is flying. On our 20th anniversary, I surprised all my franchisees. I said, look, I know I'm not supposed to do this. I've been told by every franchisor, every consultant in the world, never, ever impose a royalty cap. Never, as the franchisor, limit the amount of revenue you take in. Well, to celebrate our 25th anniversary in business, I gave everybody a 5-year extension of their term with a royalty cap. Once they hit a certain dollar amount, anything from that point on for the rest of the year is royalty free. And I've got guys hitting their targets sometimes in August, September. So we are now up to over $50,000 in franchisee savings. And I know that's money out of my pocket. I could do a lot of good with that, but so can they. So that inspired me to start a small festival in my community. I moved from the west side of Cleveland. I'm about 25 miles southwest in a very small rural farming community called Litchfield, Ohio. So I came up with a one-day summer festival called Litchfield Fun Fest, where we chose 3 charities within the county. And this was a lark. This was basically, I did not sleep for months. What if this doesn't work? I've got egg on my face because, 5,000 people in your township, everyone knows who you are, and you're going to be the town fool if this doesn't work. Well, and my wife was, I think I told you in my bio that I said, my wife was not a fan. She said, Dave, what are you doing? It's summertime. It's your peak season. How in the heck are you going to organize a festival? Well, we ended up bringing in 3 live bands, children activities. We have a petting zoo, food vendors, craft vendors, and it worked. We raised just over $3,000 last year, which was the first one. We raised almost $10,000 this year in the second one. And the nice thing about it is really watching the community help out. It was literally me and maybe one other person the first year. My wife was a late bloomer. She finally helped us out. We had over 25 volunteers help set this thing up. And I didn't ask a soul. They came to me. They said, Dave, let's make this bigger. So by far, I say this all the time, other than my wedding day, the day of this festival, it's the happiest day of my life. Just to see people turn out and the giving that goes on is just unbelievable, because it's a small town. There's not a whole lot of affluent folks, and the fact that they're giving back so freely and just making this a success, it's humbling. It really is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, give us some examples, of highlights. Can you connect the dots at all to some other things that maybe happened in business? I know this is a question from out in left field, maybe, but again, we don't necessarily do it directly for that reason, but often there is some follow-up story. So anything happening in the business that you can say, hey, I connected the dots, and this was because we did the festival?
I think it's basically because as a company, we always go the extra mile. If there's, I tell every franchisee and every crew, I say, if there's a service you can perform that takes 10, 15 minutes, be it, if you're there power washing the deck and they've got a small sidewalk, well, guess what? Wash the sidewalk for, spend a few minutes. The other thing we do, which don't ask me why this took off, but if we're there in the afternoon and it's trash day for their community and the garbage people have already came and went and their garbage can is sitting on the apron or on the tree lawn, we pick it up, we bring it to the garage. It's completely unrelated to the deck staining and deck washing, but imagine if you just worked a 12-hour day at the office and you come home 6 o'clock and somebody was kind enough to bring your garbage can to the garage, because we're already grimy and dirty anyway from working. These guys in suits and ties don't need to be doing that kind of stuff. So just little things. We always try to do a little bit extra on every single job. It doesn't have to be a large dollar amount gift or service. It's just something that shows you're not just going through the motions. You actually care about this person and their house. And I think when I started seeing the franchisees and my, especially these kids, these teenage employees, doing things that I didn't ask them to do. If the wife was bringing groceries from the car, they would run and grab grocery bags. I mean, little things. And okay, obviously some of the things we're doing, some of our culture is through osmosis, getting into these kids' brains, and to see that, to see them one up our procedures and do something bigger and better than I ever would have thought of. That got me thinking, okay, we're onto something here. This is a culture now. This is something where these kids get it, and let's go big with it. Let's bring it to the community.
I love it. I was going to share, we in the company, the franchise I used to be with, we used to call them CNEs, critical non-essentials. But I like better what you're saying. You really have created a different culture, and I think that's key, and that'll show. And I guarantee you, your customers are telling that story. They're telling the story about what your franchisee did that was totally unexpected, totally non-related. They were just being good people. Absolutely. And that's great so thinking through this, what are you doing to keep that culture going or to build on that culture?
I think I may have told you this in the bio. We have our monthly sales meeting, a Zoom call, and we created Employee of the Month program, and everybody chooses their Employee of the Month. And we put the names in a hat, because how do you pick one? They're all phenomenal. Put the names in the hat, so it's a random drawing, and the winning employee, my wife and I donate $50 to that employee, and we also have him or her choose their favorite charity, and we donate an additional $50 to their charity. And I got to tell you, I underestimated how excited these employees would get over, $50. But again, I don't even know if it's the money. I think it's that feel good. It's like, whoa, I'm paying this forward. I as the employee get to choose a charity, which in turn gets 50. And it's not the money. I think it's that soul, the way your heart feels and the way your soul feels when you do something nice. And it's great. It's contagious. So we have a company picnic. I've got a 9-acre farm, a gentleman's farm. We got rid of all the animals. And we have a company picnic with a huge inflatable obstacle course. We have various competitions relating to our business. And the attendance is almost 100%. Now, everybody wants to come to this picnic because there's cash prizes for everything, but mainly it's the fellowship and the brotherhood and the competition. It's just fun competing. I'm trying to keep the family vibe going here. That it's not just about the money. It's about a culture. It's about doing things for others. And by doing so, like you said earlier, you don't mean it to positively come back to you financially with the business, but it does. Yeah. People notice and recognize that, hey, I want to hire that guy. I want, him instead of, chucking a truck. And I think doing that, call it what you will, karma, but I think that there's just what you put out there comes back, it really does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So I have two last questions. People, the folks that watch my podcast are looking for businesses, either as a broker consultant to place people maybe in a business for them, or they're on the podcast just looking at ideas. They'll look through our 50 plus videos on YouTube and go, wow, like you and I talked about earlier, wow, I watched that one. That's a really interesting concept. So tell us who you are looking for. You've hinted at it a little bit here, but if someone's out there looking for a business, tell them who you're looking for.
Absolutely. Deck Rescue is really an opportunity for anybody. As you said, most franchises are under $100,000. Ours is one of them. We prefer folks who are active. Most of our territories are actively managed. I'm not a huge fan of the semi-absentee model. So we prefer people to be involved, and it's easy work physically. You don't have to be a 300-pound bodybuilder. Anybody can do this. The younger folks seem to do better because they can handle the heat. The older folks, though, it's a fun ride. Like I said, I'm 53 and I'm still doing it. Our margins are phenomenal. We're not brick and mortar. We work from our homes. We have home offices, so our franchisee margins are around 35%, which is good. The downside, of course, it's seasonal, but that could be an upside. Maybe somebody does something in the winter. Maybe they plow snow. Maybe they hang Christmas lights. So we are a good complementary business to an existing trade or service that you might already offer your clients. So again, and the cost is not really an issue. It's very affordable. And with the margins we have, you're getting a good ROI there with every dollar you earn. So.
And again, for people out in the audience, when I help people turn their businesses into franchising, into a franchise concept, that's a little bit of what we do as well. I always talk about to the franchisor, the potential franchisor, is this profitable? I was shocked as I started to help more businesses. I was shocked at people that already spent all the money to get their legals in place, to only find out their model really originally wasn't that profitable. And then you pile on top of that all fees and things for the franchisor to make money, and again, it's a recipe for disaster. So great that it's profitable, great that it gives lifestyle. There's a lot of folks looking for lifestyle nowadays, and so and again, for my audience, Dave, the owner operated type franchise is the predominant franchise model out there anyway. So most people are looking for lifestyle. They're looking to make a little bit more money. They're looking to get out of working for some goofball, manager or whatever that they used to work for, and be able to take control of their destiny. So love your concept from that perspective. Okay, one last question. 1 second here. One last question. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you would love to say, hey, I really would love for the watchers, the viewers, the listeners to hear X? Is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to share as we wrap up?
I think you covered just about everything. The other thing I would just emphasize, you're going to make mistakes, be it a new franchisor or a new franchisee. Like I said, I floundered my first few years. I didn't have a direction. I didn't have a steering wheel, but you learn from it. And like I said, in this industry, there's a whole lot of people willing to help you out. And I'm just sorry that I didn't have that courage or that open-mindedness to ask for help. So I definitely believe that asking for help, I think that the 3 best words in business are, I don't know. I mean, don't act like you have all the answers. Just admit that you don't know. It'll open up a whole new conversation. Let me tell you.
That's awesome. Yeah. So for potential, primarily franchisors, but even franchisees, but vet better, be sure you're getting the right people on the bus, build a culture. I think that's a huge point from Dave today. And then lastly, this asking for help, but I think it's definitely a guy thing. We don't like to say we need some help, but in this community, in this franchising world, ask for help. Hey, Dave, it's been great. Appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a happy holiday season.
You too.
Thank you.